I want to start out by saying that it's unfortunate that all you Helio users were put in such a bad situation where felt that you were between the two of us. I actually have put a poll up on Flight One to decide, is it worth us putting our software on Helio users, because I hate to see them being put out in the cold. I'm going to leave up the decision to the Flight One users that have supported us all this time. We feel we're a family. We've always supported each other like a family. I'm hoping you Helio users realize that we are a family, that we're not out to get you, and maybe we can all work together as one big happy FPV family. We're going to have to, figure out a way to help you guys out. Rather, it's maybe putting Flight One on something, or maybe coming up with better replacement plans. But we don't want you being left with a flight controller that's going to have no software support. There is no software support out there for the last couple months. No one has done anything to support your flight controllers. And it's going to be unfortunate if you have to keep your flight controllers and you're not going to have any future updates. I mean, if your quad is flying well now, then you're probably fine. But I definitely wouldn't be buying any new boards, and I hope that you find your way to other flight controller softwares that actually put their heart into this and actually develop good technology that benefits the community. That's not just us. There's other companies out there that do this, but it's unfortunate that I kind of feel like you guys were put in the middle and kind of fooled into thinking you were supporting a great company or great people who really formed their company based on spite, where they're out to get everyone around them. When this all started, I had a programmer that worked for me. I paid him a bunch of other programmers all to work on Flight One, which was known as Race Flight One at the time. There was many people involved in the project, myself included, my son included. Every day we sat down and said, I said, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. Went through it step by step, did a lot of the coding myself, told everyone what to do, and that's where we came up with the product Race Flight One. The configurator was completely built by another programmer with some help of us. The programmer that left and formed Helio had absolutely nothing to do with it. Not even one line of code was done in the configurator, and arguably that's where a lot of the magic was. So just to set the record straight, he had nothing to do with that as well. There was some speculation, there was millions of GitHub entries where he did everything, but what's kind of funny about that, and what's kind of funny about what no one picked up on, is when he imported it into GitHub originally, which, by the way, he illegally uploaded it to GitHub because it was not his property, it was our property. He didn't have my email address associated with my GitHub entries. And so it didn't show up, my name didn't show up at all in any of the graphs or anything else. So it's kind of funny that none of you guys ever even picked up on that, which is kind of crazy. If you go to the GitHub originally when he put it up there, most of the entries for the past month or more were mine. In fact, almost 100% were mine. And that should have been a good indication right there that maybe the graphs weren't showing things. Keeping in mind, he put lots of libraries in multiple times, reorganized the project multiple times, and did it in such a way that it gave him tons and tons of credit for tons and tons of code that he had nothing to do with, that were STM-based libraries, so on and so forth. So first of all, to set the record straight, you guys thought, he was the savior that did 100% of the work and no one helped. That was bull. So going beyond that, what happened is he released the source code illegally. Now, Pandora's box was open. There was nothing I could do about that. It was already out there. But the issue we had originally was the fact that Tim and the guys related to Helio constantly slandered us. They told stuff like, I beat my wife and kids, like I threatened his life, like I molested children, all kinds of crazy rumors. Not only lies about myself personally and my wife and my family, but also lies about what we did with the software as well, and lies about what we were told to people nonstop. Now, I couldn't really counter all these lies. I didn't want to bring all you guys into the mess. I didn't really want to tell you exactly what was going on and start these arguments because, quite frankly, all it did is put a black mark on FPV and hurt everyone. What I wanted to do was just to get them to shut up. So after they threatened to sue us over and over and over and gave us cease and desists and all this other mess, we had no choice but to file a lawsuit versus them. Now, listen to what I said. We filed the lawsuit against them. As soon as we filed the lawsuit, we issued them an offer. The offer basically said, you do your thing. You can use the software even though we own it. I understood, Kalen worked on it hard and he felt like it was his baby. And so I'm fine. Pandora's box was open. The software's already out there. If he wanted to use it, he could. Now, one thing that they couldn't do anymore was keep slandering us. They had to stop lying. And it appeared that their company was based on the fact that they were going to confuse you guys and they were going to keep lying. They thought they would get to the top by doing this. This is not a matter of opinion. This is a matter of fact. In fact, we're going to get to where there was a settlement and they have admitted that they are going to take down all the slander and stuff associated with us. Now, to go fast forward even further, they had to come up with a way to make their mark on the FPV community. And their way, they couldn't, they didn't want to do a ton of work, in my opinion. They wanted to get a product out quickly, and they wanted to get something out that everyone thought they needed, but they wanted to do so with such a way where they could do the minimal work possible. Now, granted, this is the way I looked at it. This is the way other people looked at it. And the people that know things, the Betaflight developers and us, I mean, you don't have to believe us because we're involved in it. But, read some of the original GitHub entries between the two teams, between Betaflight and Helio, and you'll see that it was just the same slander they were throwing at us, they were throwing at them as well. More personal slander towards me, more lies. I mean, to give you an idea, I was told that Tim tried to even turn me into Child Protective Services. Now, how crazy is that? Anyone that knows me knows I don't even yell at my kids. So that is one of the worst things you could do to people. I mean, that to me makes you absolute scum. So we gave them this offer. They turned it down. They gave us some ludicrous offer where we had to give them insane amounts of money. We had to shut down our business. We couldn't do anything else. And more importantly, that means we couldn't support our users. We couldn't keep products going out there. All the people we sold boards to, we would have to put in the hands of these, in our opinion, crazy people. That means all our users would be left out in the cold to people who I felt weren't going to support you guys and take care of you guys, because we felt like all our people were our family and we wanted to take care of them. So we were backed into the corner. The only thing we could do is keep fighting the lawsuit. Now, during the course of these lawsuits, they countersued us, because that's what you do in a lawsuit, is you countersue the other people, and put these ludicrous charges. Now, the only thing they're basically claiming the same things we claimed at them. Meanwhile, Tim and others are running up their mouth nonstop. The final document that we submitted had over 300 pages of actual slander from their side. Not internal conversations, external conversations, things on the internet. We had all kinds of evidence of all kinds of slander, and that wasn't even the half of what was out there. So this seemed to maybe help the demise, but I will tell you that we finally sent them another offer, more or less saying what we said in the first offer, but a little more strict, is that you do your thing, we'll do our thing, you stop slandering us, period. And you can't use the name Race Flight 1 because it confuses people. We're Flight 1, you can't say, oh, do you want to run Flight 1? Yeah, we got Race Flight 1. It is not the same thing. It is a year and a half old. Go to our GitHub, go to our download page, look at all the changes over the last year and a half. All that stuff is missing. So we got pretty much what we wanted. Unfortunately, it cost us $200,000 to do it. Now, that is just crazy. Think about all that money, what good it could have done in the FPV community. Think about, we had to stop, sponsoring races. We had to stop contributing stuff. We used to help people a lot more. Like, our money was just going to this stupid lawsuit that all we wanted to do was just do business on our own, let them do business on their own. I mean, we knew from the beginning this was going to be a crazy amount of money spent. We even offered to give Kalen money, even though he got paid while he was here. We paid all his bills. He went on 7 vacations, 2 weeks in Hawaii, 2 weeks in New York, and crazy other ones where all he didn't have any work to do there, was basically have a good time. This is just crazy to me that I was put in this situation, my family was put in this situation, and we had no way out. Either we had to fold all our company, say F you to all our customers, say we're not going to support you, or we could keep fighting. Now, I'm going to tell you why the second part of this video is why the Helio tech is not what it seems, and why it just doesn't make sense, and why the Betaflight devs and everyone that knows about internal code and how things work thinks this is the craziest thing. Now, I want you to remember the people that told you that this is good tech and the people that told you they're good people, because I want you to remember to not take advice from these so-called experts, because they have no idea what they're talking about. This is a good example of where hype with nothing behind it managed to make a lot of people buy a controller that really was just, like the Wizard of Oz, guy pulling strings, making things sound exciting. The tech makes no sense. Their whole company makes no sense. It was formed on a bunch of spite, and I'm to the point now where I'm okay with talking about it, because as far as we've seen, their lawyers have filed a motion of settlement. They've agreed to our terms. We've agreed to our terms. Apparently, their company is no more. We've heard from team pilots that they're no longer doing stuff. We've heard from people who've talked to Kalen that they're no longer doing stuff. You guys, there is no more updates coming. There's no more boards coming. We've been told they owe money to a lot of other people. There's just, it's gone. So here you go. Here's how their tech works. There's a little flight controller. They decided they're going to put a CPU in between the main CPU and the gyro. Now, this makes sense from, I guess, if you guys think about it, you're thinking, oh, it's like a dual CPU computer. A dual CPU is way better. It doesn't make any sense. I will tell you right now, a single core computer like this is way better if it's 4 kilohertz single core compared to dual kilohertz dual core is always better. That because it allows, as long as you're doing one task, and we're doing one task, we are flying a quad. So if you're playing a game, for example, single core is way better than dual core because the game is doing one task as well. Now, the reason that these computers have multiple cores is because we don't have the technology to put a fast enough CPU to counteract, the 32 core desktops we have now. We need to go 32 times the megahertz that our CPUs are going. So the answer is to basically strap multiple CPUs together to give them more megahertz. Now, this makes sense on these computers too because they internally communicate directly with the memory. They actually, basically communicate through very, very fast channels because they're coupled together by an interface that lets them directly access memory, directly talk to each other at light speeds. I mean, more or less, it's insanely fast. It's not as insanely fast as one processor could work, but it's very fast. Now, so using that knowledge, this doesn't make any sense because these CPUs have no way to directly access the memory with each other or communicate quickly with each other. The only thing they have to use is something called SPI. Now, SPI is a serial interface. It is basically a faster version of the serial you're using. It uses a data line and also uses a clock line to go quicker than a normal serial because serial doesn't use clocks. Now, it's still not very fast. I mean, your Ethernet is faster than this. So it takes a while for one CPU to get to the other. Now, a while in terms of CPU power is not a while in terms of us. It's not taking seconds, but it's taken microseconds, at very least milliseconds in some case. There is latency there. Now, so if you think about it, you have your quadcopter, and your quadcopter is flying along here. So when it gets a signal input like this, it jerks it, you need to send this information to the gyro. So it gets this information, and the gyro then passes it on to the flight controller. Now, the problem with the Helio is it passes it on to the first CPU via an SPI read, which is not the fastest. Then that CPU has to process it and then send it again on another slower SPI read. There's a CPU in the middle that's basically a bottleneck. I mean, think about if you were driving a car. Think about if you're blindfolded driving this car and someone else is telling you what to do. You are not going to be able to race or drive as quick as you can if you could actually see and do it yourself. Now, if, using our example, is if your CPU is just so overloaded, it made more sense to have something else process it rather than, do it on itself. Maybe that makes a little sense. But the problem with that plan is we're currently running at 32 kilohertz at 8% CPU using Falco. When we're using Flight 1, we're always under 40% CPU, running full filtering, crazy filtering, and everything else. So we don't need the processing power of this extra MCU. The actual delay makes no sense. So then why did people like it? Why did that make sense to some people? Well, it's rather simple. That delayed fact actually delays your inputs. It delays what you do with the crow. So if you're doing these micro movements, you're doing whatever, it translates in your brain to smoothness. Now, the issue with that is the flight controller itself, the problem with that is the flight controller itself is getting delayed information as well. So if you look at your videos, and every Helio video I've pretty much ever seen, you're going to see bobble and micro movements and things of that nature. So you're delaying the actual quad information and your stick information, which isn't a good way to go. If you want to delay your stick information, I mean, with Betaflight, there's multiple filtering options. With us, there's multiple filtering options on the actual sticks. That's what basically your stick smoothing does. And you can still get that feel you like, but your quad's not going to do that bobbling, and your quad's not going to have the weird movements and the less sharp movements that your other stuff has. This really just makes no sense. I mean, Betaflight, maybe it could make a little more sense for it because it couldn't run 32 kilohertz, and it lets you run 32 kilohertz. I know right now Betaflight's saying you don't need that, and I'm going to disagree. I don't know if you need it, but I think we fly better with it. We've tried 8 kilohertz, and it doesn't fly the same. But you don't need another CPU to do this. If you're going to, buy into the hype and you're going to run supposedly Raceflight 1, which everyone they're trying to go to at the end there, then run the board made for it because it's running at less than 20% CPU on the current Flight 1 and less than 8% CPU on Falco. So there is nothing that we need this extra CPU in there. So there you have it. I've kind of told you what's going on with the lawsuit, and I've kind of told you what's going on with this flight controller. You can argue with me. You feel free to comment, like, dislike, whatever you want. I know everyone's not going to, believe me. But, why don't you find one of those Betaflight devs and ask them? Don't believe me? Take their word for it as well. Talk to the people that actually write the code that know what they're talking about. Don't talk to someone who doesn't write any code for our flight controllers. If they don't write code, they don't know. We have all put oscilloscopes on things and figured out what the latency is, how the data is latent, and done all that stuff. Anything else is just a guess. And you need to remember that the guess is not going to be good if it's coming from bad information.